You know, going into this review, I wasn't really sure what to expect from Sonic Battle. As I said in my Advanced 1 review, I've been playing this game since like the late 2000s, like 2008 to be specific, but I never finished it until 2015. Yeah, however, that will have no impact on how I review Sonic Battle, seeing as 2015 was when I actually tried to finish it. Keyword being tried. For example, I had been playing Jak 2 and Jak 3 since the early 2000s, but didn't finish them until 2011. Is that a product of the design, a product of my skill level, a product of my actual determination to beat it? Well, the answer is all of the above. Seeing as my first playthrough of Sly 2 lasted 2 years, and I've been playing Sonic Heroes since the mid-2000s, but I beat it in 2012, and the list goes on and on and on. Another thing worth mentioning is this is my first fighting game review, so the same disclaimer I made at the beginning of my Jak X review about racing games is in order. Multiplayer games are fun to me. I don't own many, but the ones I play are usually ones that I enjoy. The reason why I don't own many is because games where the main drive is playing competitively kind of bores me after a while, seeing as I prefer a singular experience. So with that said, let us get on to Sonic Battle. Not much is really known about this game when it comes to the pre-release. I mean, in regards to why of all things they chose to make a Sonic the Hedgehog fighting game on the Game Boy Advance that would follow up on the events of the adventure games, the classic games, the advanced games, and at that be a tie-in to the then upcoming Sonic Advance 3? Well, I have no idea. But hey, the cast of characters since Adventure 1 had certainly expanded enough to warrant a fighter, seeing as Sonic Adventure 1 and onwards had always introduced a new character in every game. However, this was not the first Sonic fighting game. That, of course, being Sonic the Fighters for the arcade, which got an HD edition on PSN that you should try out. The game's pretty short, all things considered, and it doesn't have many characters nor much content, but in my opinion, playing the game is fun and challenging, so therefore that's worth the price of admission. Let's waste no more time and talk about the story. Sonic Battle has quite the storyline in it, with a lengthy campaign featuring multiple storylines just like the adventure games. However, instead of multiple stories that show different sides of the one narrative, these multiple stories continue off from one another, leading to the last story. And I'll say it now, despite taking place after Sonic Heroes, this game, story-wise, might as well be Sonic Adventure 3. Oh, by the way, spoilers for Sonic Battle, maybe the adventure games, but seeing as you've probably seen enough plot synopses for the adventure games that you can recite it word for word, so that's not saying much. Several centuries ago, the ultimate weapon was created by an ancient civilization, but it was left forgotten for many years to come. Professor Gerald Robotnik was researching this weapon known as the Gizoid. However, for some reason or another, it was left forgotten for many more years to come. That is until Dr. Eggman discovers it and tries to use it, but he gets pissed off that it doesn't work and throws it to the sea. You know, out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, that's until it washes up on shore to be found by Sonic. From there, the story is pretty simple on paper. Sonic introduces the Gizoid, whom he names Emerald, to all of his friends, and the more you fight with Emerald, the more experience he gains, even developing a personality like Sonic's as he gets more powerful. At the end of each storyline, Emerald gets traded off to another character. For all intents and purposes, the main character of Sonic Battle is Emerald, since he is what all the playthroughs are about. Sonic introduces him to everyone as well as giving him the basic skills. Tails tries to find out more about his past, and then that's when he learns that Emerald was built to be a weapon of mass destruction, but still decides to protect him from Shadow. Next up, Rouge trains Emerald to help her steal jewels. Knuckles trains with him, but then that leads to an encounter with Eggman as he reveals he's planning something big. Amy takes Emerald to help her work out to impress Sonic. Cream befriends Emerald and he protects her when they get captured by Eggman, eventually helping her to try and fend for herself. And last being Shadow, who tries to stop Emerald from awakening his true power and eventually coming to respect him as an equal, seeing as Emerald has grown a conscience after his time with Sonic. And Sonic reminds Shadow that he's not the cold-hearted killer that he thinks he is, seeing as Sonic reminds him of his actions at the end of Sonic Adventure 2. Like I said, the story itself is pretty simple on paper, but where the story shines is in the character interactions. Every character feels in character as well as getting something to do in the plot, which is saying something given how a huge cast of characters can lead to a lack of interesting things to do as well as a lack of coherent motivations. The way the characters bounce off of each other just feels like an adventure game. Like how Sonic teaches Emerald to treat Knuckles like shite and that pisses him off, or how Shadow isn't some ultra-powerful edgelord like he was in Shadow the Hedgehog or Sonic 06. He's down to earth like SA2 or Sonic Heroes. Or how Cream is eager to be friends with Emerald and despite him being the destructive robot that he is. The dialogue is really well written. Other than Amy, she really confuses me in this game. I mean, she has issues where she overworks herself, seeing as she wants to lose weight for Sonic, and as a result will hallucinate Sonic everywhere she goes, which is strange. But there's a reason why I despise that, coming way later in the video. Also, she says, Cream's been acting weird lately. She must be going through some changes. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, that brings us to the last story, where Eggman launches the new Death Egg, resulting in Sonic and friends setting up Emerald to challenge him. However, it's revealed that Eggman has now accomplished his plan. Remember how in Sonic Adventure 1, a part of the plan was to sit back and allow Sonic and Tails to collect the Chaos Emeralds for him, and then he would jump them and take them for himself? Well, once he found out the Emerald was active, he tried to take him, but ultimately let Sonic and friends help him gain the experience to fight and give him the Chaos Emeralds, which for some reason are all green in this game. But anyway, now he overrides Emerald's program, since in Shadow's playthrough he and Rouge had put the code in to disarm Emerald of his true power. So now that Emerald's going crazy, that leaves only Sonic to be the one to destroy Emerald once and for all in a fight to the death. Sonic gets through the battle by the skin of his teeth, defeating Emerald as he's left no choice but to evacuate the Death Egg, leaving Emerald behind. But as the other characters are in despair, Sonic cheers everyone up with a lone Chaos Emerald shard that had gone into Emerald, showing that whether alive or not, there'll always be a part of him still with them. Very in character for Sonic. Then again, you can kinda call that a ripoff of the ending of SA2, seeing as the exact same thing happened there, only, Shadow didn't die in a fight to the death, but still. Despite that, I really enjoy the climax. It feels epic, seeing as both in the story and in the game, you saw Emerald grow and adapt and become stronger thanks to the training you gave him, and now you must battle the monster you created. Of course, he's superpowered in this moment, but the point still stands. When Sonic travels up to the Death Egg to fight Emerald, that is the moment where I realized this is easily one of the best plots in the series. Not only for the reason that I listed a few paragraphs ago, but you feel like you know these characters, making all the dramatic moments all the more interesting and attention-grabbing. There isn't too much competition for that title, to be fair. I mean, there's Sonic Unleashed, Avenger 2, and maybe Sonic 3 and Avenger 1. But still, being the GBA fighting spin-off and having a top-tier story is something worth noting, right? I'm gonna say it right now, if you're ever gonna play this game, the story is probably the only reason, seeing as the gameplay is probably not gonna cut it. By the way, wasn't that segue just amazing? Anyway, the tone of this review is going to change quite a bit here, seeing as the story was what kept me going throughout the game. Because otherwise, oh boy, this game is quite the slog. Similar to Advance 2, let's get the other stuff out of the way first. Graphically, this game uses the same aesthetics as the Advanced series, definitely not the same sprites, but the same style, and it looks just as smooth in a fighting game as it did in the last two games. The environments are really not much of a sight to behold, seeing as all the battles take place in one singular square with no defining background details other than a flat color, which is pretty lame all things considered. However, obviously where your eyes will be is on the action, and I love the animations for it. Similar to Sonic the Fighters, the characters have lots of stretchy animations, and the impact is huge whenever sending another character flying into a wall and then back down to the ground. Stuff like that is why it's incredibly satisfying. As for the OST, it's alright. I mean, it's high energy, which matches the style needed for a fighter, and can be catchy at times, but nothing you would ever listen to outside of the game. I think it stems from the GBA sound hardware. The system has never been known for particularly high quality music. I mean, it can work, but more often than not, great composition is ruined by poor quality. On the plus side of audio, we get to hear occasional voice clips from the cast of characters, and while it's pretty minimal, I just love most of this cast of these characters, like Ryan Drummond as Sonic, Scott Dreyer as Knuckles, Lanny Manila as Rouge, Jennifer Dooleyard as Amy, and one of my favorites, David Humphrey as Shadow, seeing as he captures the down-to-earth nature of the character perfectly, before they made him even more of an edgelord than TGX. Last but not least, the late Dean Bristow as Dr. Eggman, and man, he is just perfect. Obviously their talents are just grunts in this game, but I figured I would take this second to mention that I really love this cast, so hearing them is certainly a plus. Also, let's get this out of the way now. This game has several minigames to play, which is fine, I guess, but there isn't much of a reason to play these, and most of them are multiplayer anyway, making it so you probably won't be playing them. The game itself, of course, is multiplayer, and it's really no different than playing the main game against CPUs, so what I say about the mechanics applies to the multiplayer. Also, there's a challenge mode, which is basically a classic mode from Smash. Fight opponents in a sequence until you finish them all off. Anyway, on to the gameplay itself, and man, I can keep this pretty brief. That in and of itself is not really a knock on the quality of the game, but this is a fighting game on the Game Boy Advance. There are just plainly not enough buttons to make this battle system remotely complicated. So with that said, Sonic Battle is an overhead fighting game where you must battle 1-on-1, or 1-on-3, or 2-on-2, rarely ever 3-on-1, but still anything's possible. Every character has their own unique traits, or in other words, you won't find a single clone character in this game at all. Well, except Emerald. That is the reason why there are no other clones. It makes the roster feel really distinguished despite the fact that functionally it's the same thing. For example, every character has a 3-attack combo with the B button and then a heavy attack to follow it. These animations just feel in character, like Shadow using chaos powers, Knuckles burrowing into the ground, Tails using mechanical tools to his aid, and Cream using cheese to attack. Anyway, heavy attacks can be applied into any direction with force on the D-pad in the direction you wish to attack in. You can also do backwards attacks to keep your opponents in the air, and with a push of the A button you jump, and every character has a secondary jump that again feels unique to them, like Sonic spin jumping and Rouge hovering in the air. Speaking of which, that can lead to the massive lack of balancing in this game. Some characters are really OP like Shadow and Cream, which technically makes sense given how that's consistent with their characters, but it just does not feel done. Rouge as well as an attack in midair where she can continuously keep attacking the opponent, which is just plain unbalanced. Other characters just feel incredibly underpowered like Knuckles and Chaos, which by the way I have no idea why he's in this game. Point being that with their abysmally slow speed, these characters are left ill-equipped to deal with the scenarios the game throws at you. So with that said, the next major thing to address with the gameplay is the special moves. When entering a battle and when dying and coming back, you must choose 2 special abilities to take with you out of 6. Again, another product of the lack of buttons. One special move is activated by pressing the R button on the ground, which can range from a tornado from Amy, Knuckles picking up a giant rock, or you can do it from the air, like Sonic bouncing to the ground and back up, Shadow teleporting in with a blast of chaos energy. This can allow for variety in between matches, seeing as there are 6 possible options you must pick. The third option being the ability to drop bombs from the air or the ground, which is pretty good, as most of the characters. Like as Sonic it's great, but as Shadow it's next to useless, seeing as it goes far away and rarely hits anything. Last but not least is the guard mechanic. This is where the lack of buttons actually hinders the game. How it works is that a press of the L button can put up a shield that will block attacks, but this shield only lasts a few milliseconds before going away. So you have to time your blocks, which is perfectly fine in my opinion, seeing as it can be really satisfying to block at the right second. However, after that is the recovery state where you regain your health. Some characters this is really fast, and other characters it's really slow. However, they'll also build up a secondary gauge, and when filled, any special move will be an instant kill, unless the CPU blocks it. I feel like the shield mechanic and the recovery mechanic should have been different buttons, because then we could have gotten a slightly longer shield and a dedicated button to recovering, but no, they're the same, so you have to waste precious recovery time blocking for no reason. Like I said, this is just the price of the game being on the GBA. It really should have been a console game in my opinion. If they did that, then we would have more buttons to work with, more options for multiplayer, better environments. Really, the game would be drastically improved if they did that. However, that pretty much covers the core gameplay. It's really simple. Anyway, that leads us to the next main thing in Sonic Battle, that being Emerald. Like I said earlier, Emerald's pretty much the main character of this game. Wait, did I say that?
I don't know, I'm too feckin' lazy to check this script over and find out.
Anyway, increasing the stats of Emerald is an important mechanic in this game. Given just how many fan-made ones there are out there, I'm assuming you've seen these before. Any encounter in the story where Emerald is the player or a CPU grants you a card. Not that these cards have anything to do with it, it's just a visual representation of how Emerald learns from his battles and can mimic the attacks of others. This makes for an incredibly customizable experience, although to make sure you can't go crazy at the beginning of the game, Emerald starts this game absolutely pathetic, and with each battle he grows in skill points. 1 skill point is given if you win a match but you died at least once, 2 are given if you survived, didn't die, but got hit, and 5 if he made it through completely without a scratch. Lastly, 10 skill points are given when he gets a Chaos Emerald at the end of each episode. Everything is customizable. If you want Emerald to run like Shadow, jump like Sonic, fly like Tails, punch like Amy, have Rouge's heavy attack, and the list goes on and on and on. It's an incredibly rewarding system that's enough to make you interested in continuing the story for gameplay reasons. For example, this is why it makes perfect sense to have some characters have a really slow recovery and have other characters do really fast recovery, because it's all up to you. Do you want to build up your special attack gauge faster or your health faster? The process of learning how to play as each character transfers over to Emerald, because when you like something in one character, you can put that on Emerald in combination with the things you like about the other characters, therefore creating a character that's basically flawless. Which supports what I said about the final boss, seeing as in the first phase where Emerald must defeat Eggman, it's satisfying to take everything you've learned as both the player and as the character to defeat Eggman. And the second phase being tragic because you have to destroy everything you worked so hard to build. With that said, I've talked about the good of Sonic Battle, which is pretty much everything about it, but just like X8, this game suffers from a very small list of flaws that are fatal. And when I say fatal, I mean so fatal that I barely plan on touching this game for as long as I live. All of these flaws come from the story mode, and while I find the plot of Sonic Battle to be great, the writing is witty and dramatic when it needs to be, and the core mechanics of Sonic Battle are fun. So I'd pop in this game every now and again and play a few matches, since like I said, the game is fun. But the campaign? Seeing as I like the mechanics, it's fun at times, but let us cover the flaws. First, this game has absurd spikes in the difficulty. The very first one being at the end of Sonic's campaign. The difficulty's been fairly consistent until out of nowhere, Emerald must battle Knuckles. At this point in the story, Emerald is just a trash can that can walk. Knuckles will demolish you if you try to take the offensive, so you must take the slow and steady route, and therefore you'll be here longer than it would take to defeat Hymax in Mega Man X6. I guarantee you that they did this just to drag out the game, seeing as if I was playing as Sonic, this could be over really quickly with minimal damage taken. In Rouge's playthrough, you and Emerald have to beat Amy countless times, but at the end of the playthrough, Amy starts hallucinating Sonic again. So you have to fight Sonic and Amy? That doesn't even make sense, because Sonic isn't actually here. I'd accept it if it were easier, but the only thing that's easy here is getting your ass kicked. It doesn't help that this is a 10 stock match, meaning that if you fail when the opposition is on their last lives, you will be doing the whole thing again. One of the worst examples being in Knuckles' playthrough where he has to battle 3 guard robos at once, and he's just not equipped to deal with them, with his slow attacks and abysmal running speed. The guard robos blow up when dead, and unlike Gamma, which again, no idea why he's in this game, these gray ones have no tell for when they're about to blow up.
Recovery mode.
Like, my god, does this game want you to have fun or not? Doesn't help that this segment has several options to go to, but all of these are repetitive guard robo fights and only one of them matters, so better start fighting and hope you pick the right one. Oh, that reminds me, in the story mode, you can get the characters from place to place via an overhead point and click game where the characters follow a pointer as you bring them to key locations. Anyway, you'll be stuck on all these above mentioned difficulty spikes for what feels like forever, because I feel as if they were done intentionally since these character combinations are just not stacked up in your favor. Also, why does this game not let me choose to be either Emerald or the character of the episode? That should be an option considering how I gave Emerald a devastating power, but Emerald's AI never uses it. I wish it could be Emerald right now, but I can't. I'm stuck as fucking Knuckles. But that doesn't even hold a candle to the game's final flaw. This is easily one of the most padded out games I have ever played. The padding is completely self-aware and completely shameless. Naturally, this game has a ton of exposition, so therefore they break it up with sequences only there to waste your time, like how in Cream's playthrough, for some reason you have to fight guard robo after guard robo for absolutely no reason. The difficulty spikes are meant to make the game longer, and the most shameless examples being how you'll start battling, beat the opponent in a 5-stock match, then right after that they say, "You may have beaten me, but let's do it again," only this time with 10 lives, and this is a process that occurs for a majority of the game in every single playthrough. It never ends. Like, the game takes scenarios that could be done in a half hour and drags them all out to an hour long, doing the same shit over and over and over and over again. Combined with the already mentioned issue, and you have one of the most padded out games I've ever played, making Sonic Battle a game you're probably going to want to put down after 4 or 5 chapters of the campaign. Like in Shadow's playthrough, right before the curtain closes, Shadow wants to test Emerald's skills, and to do so he must battle Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Rouge, and Cream again, all in 10-stock matches. Then he can fight Shadow. It's that kind of shit that happens all the time, like I said, making Sonic Battle a very, very tedious game to play. And with that said, this is usually where I begin the conclusion. My question to all of you is the same one in my X8 review. Sonic Battle is a game where I love everything about it. The art style is great, the graphics look good, the animation's fantastic, and I think the battle system, despite being simple and restricted, is quite fun, and the story and writing are some of the best Sonic has ever had to offer. But what does any of that mean when the story mode is bogged down by a ridiculous amount of shameless repetition for the sake of dragging out the running time, and seemingly random difficulty spikes put in to again drag the game out? I have a ton of nostalgia for this game, but I cannot ignore the fact that I just don't find playing through the story mode to be fun. So then the question becomes, do I enjoy Advance 2 more or less than Sonic Battle? Sonic Advance 2 is a shallow game from start to finish with joyless final stages and hair-pulling completion, but the game bored me with the 4 identical playthroughs. Sonic Battle rarely makes me as mad as I am during Sky Canyon or Techno Base, even though it does get there at times. Sonic Battle is just really boring, all things considered. Like I said, this is a game I'm probably never going to play ever again because there's just no need to. This game does have its fans though, and I say more power to you, but I just did not dig this childhood favorite of mine when picking it up again. Thus ending my review of Sonic Battle.